Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Yes, it's me, Egbert. As the new owner of this station, I want to make sure we have the best talent on the air. That's why I've decided to ban all real estate agents and only have real talkers like Brad and John. Here they are, B and J.
You know, I've talked to Egbert about that several times now, and he hasn't seen the light of day as far as I'm concerned. I'd say we should be more inclusive. I say we should essentially embrace people like Rick and Tracy Ellis.
DEI, Brad. I mean, we're all for diversity. Equity, or it's actually DIE, because that's what they want to happen to white men. But diversity, inclusion, and equity, and I agree with you on that, Brad.
I couldn't be wrong. Isn't it DEI?
No, it's DIE, because that's what they want to happen to white men.
I get it, die. Okay, I'm dumb. It took me a while to pick that up. Okay, I'm going to mention a name, and if you know who this is, I'm going to be impressed. Her name is Valentina Gomez.
Oh yeah, she's the meme candidate for Secretary of State.
Do you know how old she is?
24.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
So, that's a 1999 vintage.
So, okay, she made the national news last week. I didn't bring this up last week. Do you know why? You know what there's a big story. There's a couple different national news sites she's on.
Yeah, I just started here in 2001 paying attention to Missouri political news, but I think she's running for Secretary of State, and she's got a flamethrower ad.
Yes, and what she did was Missouri Secretary of State Republican candidate Valentina Gomez took a flamethrower to grooming, indoctrinating, and sexualizing books in a campaign video on Tuesday. This is last week. The video, which has over 1 million views, featured the 24-year-old GOP candidate holding the weapon in a backyard. And she says, quote, "When I'm Secretary of State, I will burn all books that are grooming, indoctrinating, and sexualizing our children. MAGA, America First," her ex-post read. And it looks like she's in a backyard of a house. And is she standing on a swimming pool? Looks like she's...
I don't know, but I don't mean to step on this, Brad, but I have a civilian friend. So that's what I call people that are not involved in politics every day. And the civilian friend reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you seen this woman? Like, she looks really good. She doesn't look like a Republican. She's really pretty and very well dressed." And I said, whoa. Because, there's a little bit of truth to that. But her point was that this woman is very stylish and that this woman looks really good. So I gave her a little bit of background, and I gave her I'm of two minds of this whole thing. I didn't mean to step on your story. But the point is, again, if you're in that crowd of Missourians that just scrolls and you're not a real political person, you see this and you're like, who is this chick?
Right. Well, the interesting thing, first off, we just talked about this last break. The video was done vertical video. I'm going like, okay. And once again, when they put it on the website, they have to put the little app
fill on the side,
with the fill on the left side, the fill on the right side. And her quote is, quote, "These books come from a Missouri Public Library. When I'm in office, they will burn." I don't think she's doing herself any favor by that. Remember all the grief that Bill Eigel and was it Nick Schroer weren't they the two?
Yeah, Nick Schroer and Bill Eigel. They weren't burning books; they were burning empty boxes. But the symbolism was there.
Right, and if you know the whole crazy thing, for some people, maybe the younger audience we have doesn't know the symbolism. This is what the Nazis did. The Nazis took books that were not what they believed to be pure Aryan type books that reinforcing the Nazi lifestyle and the Nazi whole bit, and they burnt the books. And the idea being is that what you're doing is you're essentially keeping narratives that you don't agree with out of the heads of people. Now
it's the old censorship meme and things like that.
Right. And you know what? I get it. On a college library, anything goes. High school library,
Yeah.
Junior high, grade school, none of this crazy crap. You know what I mean? I mean, it just should be all, it should be history books, and it should be, books on how to make things, and, and should be fiction and stuff like that. It shouldn't be like Jimmy needs a, whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Needs an implant, or he needs to tuck it. Jimmy identifies as an asexual at the age of 8.
Right. And it's going to the point where, like, okay, what's so funny about this is if I'm a big fan of Babylon Bee. When the Babylon Bee latches onto one of these things, they make it so funny. You know what I mean? It's to the point where
so good. And the one yesterday wasn't it? Or I just saw it yesterday. It may be older, but it was a girl that wasn't old enough to get a tattoo can go get her genitals chopped off.
Right. But see, that's when you think about that, you think about hold on a minute now. So in other words, what they're saying is, and that's the ultimate thing right there. You're old enough to have a sex change operation, but you can't get a tattoo, right?
Yeah, exactly. So back to Valentina Gomez. Now, what is your opinion of all this?
I don't know.
Like, would you vote for her?
But see, I'm a disruptor. I'm
and so part of you likes the idea that she's doing this.
Yes, and quite honestly, would I vote for her? Yeah, just as a vote. Like, okay, see, now here's the interesting thing. Okay, I'm an old white guy. Okay, and what do I say? Let's get rid of the old white guys. Okay, that's what I'm essentially saying. I've said it before on this station. I think it's horrible that we have an upcoming election that will probably turn out to be two old white dudes.
Yeah, very
Trump
old white men.
And Biden. I say bring on the new generation. Put Tulsi Gabbard in there.
Or Vivek.
Yes, put people like that in there who have a different.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
And essentially, and to the point where like it's to the point where, and once again, Trump. I heard a couple people talking about him yesterday. He just needs somebody to sit him down and say, Mr. Trump, I know you've gotten a long way with your bombastic, things you say, but you know what? What's it? STFU? Isn't that what it is? STFU?
Yeah, STFU, which is what most of us need to do throughout the course of the day.
Right.
In many cases, the best thing we can do is STFU.
STFU, when it comes to saying goofy stuff like, hey, if these people in NATO don't pay their bill, we want the Russians to attack them. I'm going like, he's got Joe Biden on the ropes with this crazy thing with, the weird crap with I almost said something else. The weird crap with him, the prosecutor saying, oh, we can't try him because he's an elderly man.
A well-intentioned,
well-meaning elderly man who's.
But Brad, I mean, my whole expectation, I shouldn't say expectation, my whole hope is that for months now, someone would go to Trump and have that conversation where you say, dial it down from a 10 to a 6, and you'll win this election, and then be as crazy as you want to be. But I don't know. I think I'm just too optimistic in that. And I think at a certain point, if you're Trump, you think, to your point, Brad, I've gotten this far being this bombastic, to use your word. I've been this bombastic, and I've gotten this far. I'm going to keep being who I am. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, I get that, but there's a certain point is that if he's a businessman and you're negotiating a deal with some guy who, let's say, is bald and he's very self-conscious about that.
I know where you're going with this.
You wouldn't say to him, hey, Baldy, sign the contract. You know what I mean? I mean, you wouldn't, dude, why don't you grow some hair and be a man? You wouldn't say things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because your goal is to close the deal. And then when you're in the car with your buddies afterwards, you talk about how you can't stand bald heads.
Boy, did you see the glare off that guy's head? That's when you make fun of it. It's not when you...
It's not when you're attempting to close the deal. But, the man wrote the art of the deal. So who's to say? I agree with you completely.
But he didn't write it. He was a ghostwriter.
That's true. Yeah, he gave an interview and somebody that knows how to write wrote it. Let's go back to Valentina Gomez real quick, though, because I'm of two minds on this. The first one is when I see stuff like this, I think automatic grifter. Like somebody who knows that for every $250,000 that she raises, let's say she raises $100,000 online in a month, 20% of that is going to go into her pocket or her, quote, consultant's pocket, whatever. On the flip side of that, it's not for somebody that I've been involved in Republican campaigns now. This is 30 years. It's not for somebody like me to gatekeep the Republican Party and say, well, in my day, we didn't have video gimmicks. Like I can't be a gatekeeper and say we don't need, what we do need? A lot of hot 24-year-old women in our party, if only to expand the demographic. So who am I to say that, well, she's a grifter, to heck with her. You know what? We need her votes and we need her demographic.
Well, the interesting thing about this is that what's happened is that to a certain extent, and you probably maybe agree or disagree with this, but there's experts that I've listened to saying that the Republican and the Democrat Party have switched perspectives. It used to be that the Democratic Party was sort of the down-to-earth party. It was the union guy.
The working people, yeah.
It was the Teamster guy who showed up for work every day, and it's the
Joe Sixpack.
Right, Joe Sixpack, the guy who his goal in life was to get married and have kids and have a nice house and have a bass boat and stuff like that. And now the Democrats are like, all the rich
elitists,
people,
yeah.
the elitists, the coasters, the East and the West coasters.
Overeducated. They have multiple degrees that they display prominently on their wall.
Right. And the tech people and stuff like that. And that's why Trump, I say to this day, that's how Trump got elected in 2016, because he appealed to those working man kind of guys. And the crazy part of it is, if you've read stories about him when he was in New York, when he was still just like Joe, he was never Joe Average Citizen, but before he got into politics, he was revered by the workers. I mean, he showed up in job sites and the guys, the concrete guys. Hey, Mr. Trump, how you doing? That kind of stuff. Because he even though he was always, and he came from money. Let's be honest. He talks about, well, my dad gave me I got my start because my dad gave me a little seed money. Seed money from my dad would have been $10. From Donald Trump's father, it was like $1 million or something like that. Okay, and see, the crazy stuff about this is that I think that's where the Republicans are blowing it, because they essentially should say, and to a certain extent they are, the Republicans are the Second Amendment people. The Republicans are the people who got ticked off at what's the Dylan Mulvaney crap. If you watch the Super Bowl ads, and I've watched a lot of these on YouTube, but before they actually were aired on Sunday, the Bud Light ad, they're getting back to funny stuff. You know what I mean? They're getting back.
And guy humor.
Right,
remember, because their marketing lead said that we're not doing frat boy humor anymore. Well, guess what? It's back to being funny.
Well, and I say, what's wrong with being frat boy? I get accused of being immature. Matter of fact, I have people that know me that tell me that I have the diet and the mentality of a 12-year-old, and I go, okay, so what's wrong with that?
It's a compliment. Yeah.
I take it as a compliment. They mean it as an insult. Sure.
Back to your point about Trump, real quick though. And noted political strategist Jeff Rowe, who's from Missouri, who ran DeSantis's Never Back Down PAC for a while, he gave a great interview that I've watched several times back in, I think he gave it 2 or 3 years ago, where he gave the exact numbers of the fact that Trump, beginning in 2016, brought down the average, and I believe it was median income of a self-identified Republican, something like $20,000. Because in other words, Trump did exactly what you just said, Brad, which is that he appealed to people that are working class people that are tired of all this elitist stuff. And I think the vein of that you see extending in 2024 is not just the issues that you mentioned, Brad, but also the idea of America first.
Right.
Why are we spending all this money giving it to Ukraine? Have you seen the price of milk or cocoa or eggs this week?
Well, I went into, it's funny you should talk about that. You and I had a lot of fun when we talked about when I went into the Wally World and they were selling corn shucks or husks for like $8. Okay, I went into my Schnucks the other day, and I walked by. They have the displays like like they market things, and this was right before the Super Bowl thing. They have a whole Super Bowl area, and I walked by a display, and they had pistachio nuts, and it was like a small bag. It was $8.
Yeah,
and I'm going,
completely believe it.
$8 for a bag of pistachios.
Hey, but you know what? You know whose fault that is, Brad? That's the grocery stores. Because I was watching TikTok, and there's the strapping young man named Joe Biden.
Yeah, right. He said,
who was taking a break from bingo, and a woman came over and wiped the drool off his chin. And he told me that it's actually shrinkflation, where companies put less product into the bag. Did you know that?
Can you believe he did that? That, to me, is like the stupidest thing. And once he's only like about 3 years too late on that one. I mean, that's
come on.
That started happening
more than 3 years late.
Well, yeah, I mean, the shrinkflation thing's been going on for a long time.
But you know what? You got to have an enemy. He has to have an enemy to explain that somebody in the administration has good polling that says, you know what? Just point to Pepsi profits, and say these guys are making too much money.
You know what? To a certain extent, I agree with Joe Biden. You know what happened to me the other day?
What's that?
I went to my Quickie Mart and I got a gallon of gas. And I only got 128 ounces. I'm thinking to myself, now hold on.
That's exactly right.
I wanted a gallon of gas. I only got 128 ounces. Life's not fair. You know what I mean, come on. I mean, the shrinkflation thing is, I'm going like, okay, he won't go. You know what? The stuff came out. Was it yesterday? I heard that the Super Bowl had the most number of viewers ever.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, Paramount, the company that put the whole thing together, said that they'll never have that. They'll never have that number of viewers ever again.
Why would you turn down, if you were the president of the United States, an interview in the most watched program in American history? Why would you turn that down?
Yeah.
I mean, instead he does that goofy shrinkflation video. It's like, oh, okay, whatever. And they got little props set up next to him. He's got like a bag of chips and stuff like that.
It's so good.
I'm going like, okay. You know the problem is?
What's that?
The problem is he needs a new political advisor and he needs a new media advisor. I say that he should hire Valentina Gomez.
Love it. And you know what? For the right, I'm not casting aspersions on Valentina's political ideology, but you know what? She could probably be persuaded to at least do a little bipartisan crossover there.
I'm telling you.
And you know what? If you throw in a flamethrower, who's to say that you couldn't get her to sign on? I mean, I did like her. Did you notice her outfit in that?
Boy, you're smit with Valentina Gomez, aren't you?
I'm just saying she's an attractive woman, right?
She's an attractive woman. She would be considered a POC, correct? Because she's
I think so.
She's of. See, here's the thing. They had this thing about who was the guy from and he's the quarterback. He's on that new Netflix special. You heard a lot of people watching that called Quarterback, and it's got who is it?
Oh, Jay Mariotti.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota.
Marcus Mariota. Yeah.
Marcus Mariota, and it's got our dude from the other side of the state, and then it's got who's the other one? Kirk Cousins. Okay.
Oh yeah, Kirk Cousins.
And part of the thing was they had that thing, the special on the Super Bowl, and I read about before that they honored that high school football team from Hawaii, and that's where where Marcus, right? Yeah. And I'm going like, okay, here we go again. There's the Pacific Islanders, and here we've got the ultimate Pacific Islander. We have Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, that's right.
She's a Pacific Islander. And I'm thinking to myself, put her in the White House, because once again, I think she's I think she's risen through the ranks. I think she's like a major, like a brigadier general or something like that. I mean, I know she's like at least a major. She may even be a lieutenant colonel by now in the Army. And
whatever her rank is, you're always going to salute her, Brad.
Salute.
You will definitely be saluting Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I
was going to say I'd be right there behind you, but that's a bad visual. I'd be right there by your side. Right?
Do you know what the reference there is? Do you know what I'm saying? Salute.
I don't know what it is.
Wayne's World. Go watch.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Go watch the thing where they go salute.
There we go. Yeah, that's 92 is a blur in my memory, Brad. I was still a youngster back then.
You need to go watch that. Okay, we got to get out here. Say goodbye, John.
See you guys tomorrow. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?